They believed Rome would last forever, not because prophets promised it, but because nothing they could see suggested otherwise. Marble still gleamed in the sun. Senators still debated beneath vaulted ceilings. Legions still marched in perfect formation, iron striking stone in disciplined rhythm. From the outside, Rome looked eternal. But history doesn't end empires with fire and thunder. It ends them quietly, while everyone is still applauding. And that is where our story begins. By the late 4th century, the Roman Empire ruled more land than any civilization before it. Roads stitched continents together, law bound strangers into citizens. Order flowed outward from the capital like blood from a beating heart. Yet beneath the surface, something had changed. Power was no longer shared, it was guarded. Wealth no longer circulated, it pooled. And responsibility was increasingly outsourced. Rome had grown so vast that defending it required armies larger than its own population could sustain. So Rome made a choice, a practical choice, a convenient choice, a fatal choice. In the year 376 AD, tens of thousands of Gothic refugees gathered along the frozen banks of the Danube River. Men with scarred shields, women clutching children, elders who had watched their villages burn. They were fleeing the Huns, a force so brutal that entire nations moved simply to escape them. The Goths did not come as conquerors, they came asking for shelter. Emperor Valens faced a decision: fight them or absorb them. Rome chose absorb. The Goths were allowed into imperial territory, not as citizens, not as equals, but as foederati. Armed outsiders expected to defend Rome in exchange for land and food. On parchment, it looked efficient. In reality, it was a powder keg. Roman officials were tasked with feeding the refugees. Instead, they exploited them. Grain was hoarded. Prices were inflated. Gothic families were forced to trade their children into servitude for scraps of dog meat. Imagine being invited inside a fortress, only to be starved beneath its walls. Resentment hardened into rage. Rome, distracted by court politics and internal rivalries, failed to notice until it was too late. The Goths didn't rebel because they hated Rome. They rebelled because Rome broke its promise. August 378 AD, near Adrianople, Roman legions marched under a blistering sun. Their commanders believed they faced a scattered enemy, hungry, disorganized, desperate. They advanced without waiting for reinforcements. Then the hills erupted. Gothic cavalry thundered down like a storm. For hours, the legions fought and died. By nightfall, 2/3 of the Eastern Roman army was destroyed. Emperor Valens vanished into chaos. His body was never found. Rome had not simply lost a battle. It had lost the illusion of invincibility. Here is the lesson history demands we understand. Rome's last era was not letting outsiders in. It was failing to integrate them justly. Instead of shared identity, Rome created division. Instead of reform, Rome chose delay. Instead of rebuilding civic trust, Rome rented loyalty. Empires don't fall when borders weaken. They fall when the center no longer believes in itself. This is the moment every great power faces, when survival depends not on strength, but on wisdom. Rome survived Adrianople. That's the part most people forget. The empire still stood for decades. But from that moment on, it leaned on mercenaries instead of citizens. Politics became spectacle. Inequality deepened. Trust eroded. Each crisis was managed. Each warning was postponed. Each problem was someone else's responsibility. And slowly, the idea of Rome meant less than the benefits of exploiting it. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. A powerful nation. Internal division. Outsourced strength. Short-term solutions replacing long-term vision. Similarities are uncomfortable for a reason. Rome did not fall because it was attacked. Rome fell because it forgot what made its people Roman: shared sacrifice, civic duty, a belief that the system was worth defending, not just using. Every empire reaches a moment where it must choose, renew itself, or explain why renewal can wait. Rome chose to wait, and history recorded the cost. The Roman Empire didn't collapse in a day. It collapsed while life looked normal. And the question history leaves us with is not whether great powers fall, but whether they recognize the pattern before the final mistake is already made. If this story made you think, subscribe for more deep dive history with modern meaning. Like the video to keep these stories alive, and comment below. Do you think history is warning us or repeating itself? Because the past is never really past, it's watching to see if we've